If you're in a job that looks great on paper, but just doesn't light you up like it once did, you are not alone. I'm Chloe Temple, a leadership coach who spent the past 5 years helping leaders like you find clarity, confidence, and purpose without walking away from the security of a 9-to-5. Welcome to The Leader That Lasts, a podcast for ambitious professionals who want more than just making it through the week. Each episode, I'll share real stories, honest mistakes, and practical tools to help you find fulfillment wherever you are. Because staying doesn't have to mean settling. You don't need to leave, you need to lead. So let's dive in. Okay, so this episode is going to be a fun one. I'm recording this on Monday, the 1st of September here in the UK. That's the end of the summer holiday vibes. My partner's just gone back to school today, as will many kids this week, here in the UK at least. And for once, I'm with you people who have been on holidays. I haven't just been to Oz in the last couple of months. I've also been to the Czech Republic, to Slovakia, to Hungary. I even spent a week in the Lake District, which was, well, blimey, that was nice. And I decided even before I went on holiday that I wanted to come back and talk about holidays. Because who doesn't love a holiday, right? Well, you might not have just been on one, and so you're thinking, blimey, Chloe, you've got a little bit too much energy for a Monday morning. But whether or not you've just been away or you've got one coming up, I bet you have at least a line of sight of when your next holiday is. Maybe it's Christmas. That's definitely my next one. I'm going to Cambodia for Christmas. How nice. But the reason I wanted to talk about holidays is because I wanted to tap into this very, very, very specific and common trap that I see so many fall into, and that I spent most of my corporate career in, which I am calling, and it definitely needs a better name than this, but I'm calling it the Just Survive Until My Next Holiday Trap. It's a catchy title. That's also going to be the name of this podcast episode, so maybe it resonated enough for you to have clicked onto it. But have you ever fallen into that trap that I just need to get by until I have my next break? You go away, you have this fabulous time, and then within a couple of days, maybe a week, 2 if you're lucky, you are back to feeling exactly where you were before you took the holiday, and that whole thing felt like a distant memory, and you're almost already counting down the days until your next one. That kind of feeling when you're clinging on in there until you've got a bit of space to breathe. Does any of that sound familiar? If it does, believe me, I have been there. When I was in the corporate world, I used to call myself a holiday ninja. I was obsessed, and I mean totally obsessed, by holiday days. At the start of the year, I would literally map out the entire year and try and work out what was the most efficient way to kind of sort of game the system to max out my holiday days. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, maybe you have done this. I can't be the only one who kind of thinks, ooh, it would be a little bit strategic to plan your leave around, let's say, Easter, May, Christmas, New Year. That if you plan your holiday at a certain time, it means you can have the longest possible period to not have to work, to actually properly switch off, to be outside of the office. I used to do this start of every year. You get the calendar out, work out where were those public holidays, where were the weekends, what was the most strategic way that I could get the maximum time away whilst taking the minimum amount of time off work. Sometimes I think I managed to get like 18 days away for only 6 holiday days. I think when you really cracked it, usually when Easter was involved, I can't exactly remember, but there were certain times where you could really game it. And then if you were super savvy, like I used to do when I was a young whippersnapper, I used to book a flight that would maybe land back into Heathrow Airport or Sydney Airport at 6 a.m, which would enable me to actually make it into the office before 9. And yeah, I'd be a bit of a zombie that day, but I was playing the system. I was stretching it out as far as I could. Or maybe you've left at 4 and you managed to catch that 8 p.m. flight. Because, I mean, let's be honest, it does take often a couple of days to at least get into the swing of a holiday, especially if you've come off the back of a really, really busy stint. And I don't know if you've ever experienced it, but I used to get sick a lot at the start of a holiday. This is almost like your nervous system settles down. It's like, oh my gosh, it's a big sigh of relief. Phew, we've worked so hard to get us to this point. We finally get a break and then suddenly you get sick. It used to happen to me all the time when I went skiing, which is the worst possible time because you spend so much money to go on a ski trip with all the equipment and lift pass and all that kind of stuff, and then you suddenly have bronchitis. Terrible. That was me. Now, if you've already got this far into the episode and you're like, Chloe, you're mad, it might not be the episode for you. But I think the kind of message that I'm trying to land here is I really loved holidays. I really, really, really thought holidays were so blooming important. So much so that I actually found myself not once but multiple times trying to negotiate, instead of pay rises, more holiday days instead. Now, you might be thinking that's mad. Why wouldn't you just buy some more days? But the company I was working at the time, they didn't allow you to take any more than the 20 allowed. So I didn't have that as an option. But no, they wouldn't let me. I was maxed out. So yeah, I'm sounding like a holiday day kind of crack addict or something. But there was a reason why. And I worked so hard and I gave so much. And I love travel, of course, too. But I felt like I really needed them. And I felt like I needed and wanted a longer stint in order to recalibrate. The really funny thing is, well, just how much things change. Because the holiday I've just been on was actually, and I'm really actually ashamed to admit this, but it was my first proper holiday in 18 months. And yeah, there's a big difference between working for someone else and working for yourself. And whilst my current boss is amazingly generous and gives me time off whenever I want it, and I'm talking about myself, right? But I can take time off for friends' wedding dress fittings or when I need a mental health day. But my boss just haven't felt very comfortable allowing me to properly switch off, even when I was away, like I used to. Okay, I'll start referring to myself as my boss. It's not that I haven't been allowed to. It's more accurately that I haven't felt safe enough to. And that's not to say that I haven't taken time off. But this is the first time in a long time where I wasn't doing some sort of work at the same time. And it actually, even 18 months ago, I was still trying to write a book in the mornings whilst everyone else was asleep. So yeah, this latest holiday is the first time in years and years that I've had that proper ability to switch off. And I was incredibly resistant to it. Not only because I was worried that the business couldn't function without me, more so though, I really love what I do. And so switching off hadn't been something that I had really wanted to do, because work for me often feels like play and I didn't want to take myself away from playtime. I really, really have created work that does light me up, does fill me up. And so why would I want to stop doing that? At least that's what I was thinking before I went on holiday. Because even if you are like me and you absolutely love your work, you love what you do, it is actually important for us to have a break. And if you don't love what you were doing as much as you might have previously done, then there's some lessons to learn here. Because the key that I wanted to talk about in this episode is I think that there's a happy medium for us both. For you not needing a holiday to sort of recover from work or to keep you going, and for me not being so reluctant not to work because it's so fun and fulfilling. The key I'd really like to talk about in this episode is how do we integrate more of both into our lives? So one, more fulfilling work that feels like play, that taps into our strengths, where we get to experience flow state. We operate in our zone of genius. How do we design our work lives such that we get more of that? and intrinsically motivated work, which I'll talk about. And secondly, how do we create space for and build more rest, recovery, fun into our normal lives? So it's not this kind of boom and bust, this on or off. That's what I want to explore today. And I want to do so by starting with that first one. How do we find more fulfilling, intrinsically motivated work that feels like play? Now, to do so, I want to introduce or reference an amazing book by Daniel Pink called Drive. The subtitle, I think, is The Surprising Truths About What Motivates Us. Now, in the book, Daniel talks about 3 drivers of intrinsic motivation. That's motivation that comes from internal source, right? It's pull motivation, where we want to do something. We're internally motivated, versus extrinsic motivation, which is more kind of carrot and stick. A push motivation, it's more, I should do that because there's either going to be consequences for me not doing it, or there's a carrot for it, there's a bonus, there's a reason external to myself for why I should want to do that. That might be financial, it might be status, it might be praise. There is some level of external reward for doing something. Now that is a driver, extrinsic. The really interesting, much more sustainable form of motivation though is intrinsic motivation. And so what Daniel talks about in the book is the 3 drivers of this, 3 drivers of intrinsic motivation: purpose, mastery, and autonomy. And so the first one, purpose, that's work that feels really meaningful to us, or where it's connected to something bigger. It's when we have a deeper why for whatever it is that we're doing. It's not focused on the what we're doing, but the why we're doing it. When you feel like your work is purposeful, when you have purpose, you're energized rather than drained. So my question to you in terms of purpose is, what part or what components of your work life feel most meaningful to you? Even if it's just 10%, what's the part of your work life that you're like, oh yes, that fills me up because it feels like I'm doing something that's going to impact positively someone else or the world, or make a difference. Second intrinsic motivator is mastery. And this is our innate desire to get better at stuff, or to operate perhaps in our zone of genius, where you're in your zone of genius when you feel like you're in flow, when you feel like the level of challenge and the level of skill set or capability is a really good mix. It's like if you're playing a video game. I'm not sure if you're into video games. I'm actually not, but let's use this analogy as an example. But if you're playing a video game, you start to get better at each of the levels, right? And so if you were going to play this video game and it was the same level throughout, you would get a bit bored because you'd get better at it, and then where's the growth there? Mastery is all about improvement, or constantly improving, finding that 1% edge, getting better. But if you're going to start that video game at whatever that top level is, it's going to be too hard for you to feel like you're making any progress in it. You're not really going to set yourself up for success because it's too hard. It's not in that great zone of challenge. And that's what we want to try and create in our work. We want to spend as much time as we can do operating from those areas of strengths, the things that we're naturally good at, that we can then challenge ourselves to spot opportunities or overcome things or create change because we're operating from our strengths. We're mastering through a sense of flow in areas that probably don't feel easy but are doable. Like, we are growing. And the final of the 3 is autonomy. And this is when we feel we have control over when, how we work. And even small pockets of autonomy can make a huge, huge difference. Being able to manage your diary, being able to come in at a certain time, being able to work out when you're going to focus on X, Y, and Z, being able to identify what's priority, what needs to be focused on, designing your work around your life. It's why we hate to be micromanaged. is because we lose all autonomy. So my question for you there is, where could you negotiate for even 20% more autonomy in how you approach work? Because sometimes it can feel like we just have no agency over the autonomy. I was having a conversation only last week where someone was telling me that the organisation that they work in has gone so the other way in terms of flexible working, to the extent that they're now doing clock in, clock out. That's going to cause immediate damage to the team's feeling of autonomy. So sometimes it doesn't necessarily seem like there is a way, but I bet there is a way to build autonomy regardless of the external situation. So where might you be able to find some of that? So I wanted to share those three really as tools or food for thought in terms of how you tackle that first area, that how do we integrate more fulfilling work that feels good, that feels like play, that we're intrinsically motivated by. But the second component of it is how then do we build more rest, recovery, fun into normal life. So it's not such a boom bust cycle, which you might be better at than me. But how can we get to a state where we don't need it quite so much, that the holiday gets to be a bonus or something that we get to enjoy and not something we desperately need because we have built in micro recovery moments into our daily lives or our weeks. And for me, being able to be my own boss has enabled me to do things like take mental health days or take time out where others might struggle to go to wedding dress fittings, or have a bath in the middle of the day, which I actually do way more often than you probably would imagine, or start at a slightly weird time, or finish early. Look, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of iterations of what that could look like for you. So my question to you is, what's one thing that you do on holiday that makes you feel good that you maybe could build in next week even? Or what's a micro version of something that you enjoy whilst on holiday that you can find a way to build into your normal life? I did an episode recently on AI, and my hope for AI is that it does free us up to have more space, more time for us. Might not happen immediately, but there might be creative ways where you can unlock chunks of time in your week that might not have felt possible previously. Might be by saying no to something. It might be by utilizing some of the tools to be more efficient and not just adding more on top there, that enables you to fill yourself up in some sort of way that actually has net positive impacts to how you show up at work anyway. I had a coach that said, Chloe, your real work is rest. Like, that rest for you is the work, because you need to learn how to do that. That's your area of growth. That's the thing that's going to take you to the next level. And I knew cognitively at the time he was right, but I promise you, I feel like a totally different person after 3 weeks away. And yes, that was a big chunk of time. But I am thinking so carefully about how do I build some of those things that have enabled me to feel as I do now into my week, into my daily life. Because it's so important. And to be honest, it's probably one of the most strategic things we can do. Often we are looking or feel like we need these big things, new role, holiday, to reignite ourselves or to shoot us off into a different direction. And yet, more often than not, the same patterns will repeat wherever it is that we are, or as soon as we get back from the holiday. That's why we feel within the week even like we hadn't even been away. My belief is that there is creative ways that all of us can find to build in more of what lights us up, more of what fills us up into whatever situations we are in, whatever role that we are currently playing. And that might be that you find a way to find more purpose through what you're doing, or more autonomy, or more mastery, or more breaks, rest, recharge, or all of the above. There is nothing I love more than creatively trying to work out, right, what's a way that we can build more of that in with clients, in my own life too. How can I get creative here around looking at the things that I think are not possible, the limits that appear to be, and how can I find a creative way or a creative solution to do something different? Look, here's the thing. I think the thing that we're desperately, desperately needing and calling out for as leaders is space. Space to think, space. Just space in all of its iterations, all of its guises. And that's what we get a lot from holidays. We get space to recalibrate. Yet, often in our lives, we are operating in reactivity. We are responding. We are filling our diaries so full and reacting to whatever the fire is that needs to be put out there and then, or getting sidetracked by other people's priorities, that we crave and we don't have as much as we would like or we would need space to really think, be strategic, get clear on what's a priority, what can we stop doing, what should we be saying no to that we are saying yes to because we're just going through the motions, we're in it, we can't see it. It's not our fault. If we're not taking a step back, if we're not taking an aerial view of what we're doing, which is often what people benefit for when they go on holidays, they naturally get this step back out of, let's call it the daily grind. Well, they take this step back and they can see things from a different vantage and they come back thinking, right, I want to do something differently, or I can see this situation and what needs to be solved here. But how do we not rely on things like holidays in order to create that? How do we inject space into our weeks? Look, thinking time, space, it's not a luxury. It's something that the most strategic people in the world, they do. They create those moments. Bill Gates used to say, think weeks, where you go off on his own to read and think. You might not have a week to go and do that. But, Warren Buffett, he does it every day, or tries to do it every single day, to thinking time. How often, though, do you create that space for you? Because a third of the leaders that I have spoken with struggle here. They are honest. They say, I don't have time. Well, you're never going to have time unless you create the time, unless we create the time. And that is what I realized in the last week of my holiday, the week before last, is I wanted to give back. I wanted to create a way to help leaders protect that space for themselves. So I built a community just a week ago. We've already got over 30 people in it. And what I'm going to do, what I'm committed to do for at least until the end of this year, is every single Tuesday host what I'm calling a community co-think session, which is basically an hour in everyone's diary to think. Minimum of 45 minutes on your own, together on Zoom, cameras on, cameras off, whatever it looks like, where you actually just can think. You have autonomy to focus on whatever it is that's going to move the needle for you. It could be that you are journaling or reflecting, or you could be planning. You could be building a strategic plan. You could be staring at the ceiling thinking, oh, how do I rework my how do I rework my diary? What are the meetings that I don't need to be at? You could ask yourself those questions in that time of, how do you bring in more of what lights you up on holiday into your daily week? Or you can use it to dream, or you can use it to invest some time in your own personal development. Is it your PDP that you actually get to own? What I hope it becomes is kind of a space that people in the community keeps each other accountable for just showing up for yourself. An hour a week or an hour a fortnight. that break that I've just come back from, I am back like an Energizer bunny, but with all fresh batteries. The thing is though, those batteries, they're going to run down quickly unless I continue to create space. And so that's why I'm really excited to not only do that for other people, but also for myself. If you are tired of that boom and bust cycle and you want to build sustainable thinking space into your week, then come join us. I'll pop the link into the show notes. I have no idea what this community is going to evolve into, but 30 other people already have said yes to jumping in. And the next one is happening on Tuesday. So if you're up for that, I would love to have you in it. So I'm going to end the episode there. If this episode has resonated, please send me a message. I love to hear or know that I'm not just speaking to a little microphone in front of me. Or please do share it with someone else who might find it useful. Maybe someone who's planning their next escape already. And I'll see you next time, or maybe one Tuesday for some protected co-thinking together. Soon. Bye. Fulfillment, impact, and a life that you actually want to jump out of bed for, even on a Monday. By listening to this episode, I hope you are one step closer to creating that and becoming a leader that lasts. Now, I want to hear from you. Pop me a DM on LinkedIn or Instagram and let me know what landed. And if you are the kind of kind-hearted leader who's willing to help me out in a big way, take a minute to rate and review the podcast. Send me a screenshot and I'll send you a juicy freebie as a big thank you. Until next time, lead, don't leave, and I'll see you in the next one.